This lecture video is dedicated for discussing the ideas of the reading Freire's Pedagogy of the Oppressed. The uh, the original reading, which is Pedagogy of the Oppressed by Paulo Freire, presents a definition of the word oppression. According to Paulo Freire, oppression is a form of dehumanization. Dehumanization would mean people not being treated as human person, but as object of power, which opens now uh, many exemplifications in our society. For as long as people are treated as objects of power, people are treated as inferior, as someone that can be subjected to impositions, they are actually oppressed. Because according to Freire, when we are dehumanized, we are taken away our right to think for ourselves. Dehumanization is a form of treating people as an object of power by taking away the right to think for themselves. This kind of idea of oppression raises the question, if oppression is taking away the right of someone to think for themselves, who is therefore the oppressor and who is the oppressed? For most of the time, we allude or we identify people who are being cruel or being impulsive to another people as the oppressor, and those people that they impose rules on are the oppressed. But Freire is presenting a new idea about who's the oppressor and who's the oppressed. And I quote from the reading of Freire, each of us is both an oppressor and the oppressed. What would this mean or implies to each and one of us? Again, for most of the time, we imply that an oppressor is a human being taking away the right of someone, of other human being. But this time, Freire is saying that even this human being that we thought of as oppressor are also oppressed. How is this possible? Well, on my personal perspective, it is not only human person who can oppress. It is the idea that we hold to ourselves, which limits us on the things that we can do, can be oppressing us also. Meaning, if someone would feel superior, and imposing rules, imposing cruel regulations to people, this someone is also an oppressed, not by a person, but by the idea that he's holding to himself, and the idea that he is superior. Because of this idea that he holds to himself as being superior to everyone else, it is limiting him or her to the things that he or she can do. It's limiting his thinking capacity, the right to think for himself, by holding on to the idea that he is absolutely correct on all things and he has absolutely the right to impose things to everyone else. So this time, even these people whom we think as the one imposing rules are also oppressed by the very idea that they hold to themselves, because it's limiting their thinking capabilities as well. On the other hand, the oppressed is also oppressed, not just by the person oppressing him or her, but by the idea he or she holds to himself. If a slave, for example, has this belief that it's okay for him or her to experience slavery, because at the end of the day, he or she is still a slave. It's okay for him or her to experience this kind of cruelty because his status in life is really of being a slave. If that's the kind of idea that a slave holds to himself or herself, he is oppressed not only by the oppressor of an oppressor person, but by the very idea he or she holds to himself. The same goes to each and every one of us. If we are holding an idea right now, and this idea is limiting us on the things that we can do, on the things that we can think of for ourselves, this idea is actually oppressing us. Now, who shall liberate the oppressed? If oppressor now is not limited to a person, but can be an idea oppressing a person, who shall therefore liberate the oppressed? From the reading of Freire, he said that in the process of helping, the helpers rob the people being helped of their agency to improve their own condition. What does this mean? This means that we cannot rely on other human person to free from oppression. Ideally, what we think of is a savior who would, a human person or a savior who would liberate us from all the oppressive things we experience, right? But in reality, even if there's a person who presumably would save us, but this person would actually tell us what to do on how we can save ourselves. Therefore, this savior that we're referring to is also oppressing us on our thinking capabilities to think for ourselves. So who would save us? If the idea is the primary reason of oppression, therefore, the oppressed can only be liberated by themselves. Those, or for all of us, if there's an idea that is limiting us on the things that we can do, the only person that can liberate us from this idea is no one else but ourselves. What would it imply in the reality that we have? What would be the implication of Freire's concept of oppression? Number one would be, it raises a question on culture. Remember, oppression can emanate not only from a person, but from an idea. What if the idea is reflected on the culture? For example, the idea of slavery. What if the culture is actually mandating a form of oppression, but because you are part of that culture, you do not see it as oppression, you see it as a form of culture. The most difficult part of it is that how would you know that you are oppressed if everything that is being done is actually normal to you because it's part of your culture? That's something that we have to reflect on. The most difficult part of being a slave is you not knowing it. The most difficult part of being oppressed is you not knowing it. So how do you make yourself awake of oppression, of the idea that's limiting you, if it's embedded into culture and it is viewed as something that is normal for everyone? It also implies, or the idea of oppression of Freire also has implication in education. Freire raises the idea of the banking concept of education. In his reading, he said, students are treated as objects that can be shaped in this or that way, instead of human beings. The idea that school molds people is a form of oppressive idea, because school should not be molding people. School should be allowing people to be themselves. School should be allowing people to decide what they would be and not mold them to what the society or the school wants them to be. Right? In the classroom practice, inside our classroom, we see an oppressive way of teaching and learning. I mean, if you reflect now, go back to your experiences during your recitation. If the teacher did not really like what your answer is, what will be told to you, right? If your answer or if the teacher likes your answer, the teacher would say, very good, that's nice. But if the teacher does not want your answer or does not really like your answer, the teacher would just say, okay, that's nice try, other answers. That is something normal to our classrooms, but it's actually a form of oppressive practice in the sense that no one really cares what the students are thinking about, right? If your answer does not match the idea of the teacher, shouldn't the teacher ask, how did you come up with this idea? At least a care for the students to let them express what they think of, right? So this is a form of oppression inside our education system. Students being treated as object of power and has no will or right to think for themselves, to learn for themselves. Now, the question is, if you are a student, are there also ideas about yourself, about how you will learn things that could be limiting you on your real capabilities? If there are, the possibility is that there's an idea oppressing you right now, which limits you to the things that you can do. Now, what's the role of dialogue in liberating our minds? Freire is saying that problematizing promotes dialogue and a sense of critical analysis. Dialogue promotes people voicing out their thoughts, voicing out their minds, expressing really what they would like to be, expressing really what they think of things. And this is a form of of a form of freedom, in a sense that we are allowed to be who we are, and we are allowed to express what we want, to think as we saw fit, and to share with others what we saw fit. Not really imposing what we believe in to other people, but sharing what we believe in so that other people can also decide for themselves. How do we engage others in a dialogue? According to Freire, real liberation is anchored on love. Love would refer to a decisional love of trusting others to be themselves, of trusting others with confidence, humility, and willingness for people to be themselves. That is the idea of Freire's pedagogy of the oppressed. I hope you have learned ideas or new things from this lecture video. Please comment in our comment section, in the discussion board, what you think, or any sharing or insights about Paulo Freire's pedagogy of the oppressed. Thank you for taking time to listen to this lecture video. Stay safe always. Thank you.